Once again, everybody, it is Thursday at noon. I am your host, Hayden Greene, and you are inside of the Greenhouse Effect. Blessings to everyone. I hope everybody is having an awesome day. I hope some of you have GameStop, uh, GameStop stock, and that you had a great windfall yesterday. Um, so those are the way we greet people these days. I hope you had GameStop. Anyway, it's Thursday. We are having a good time. I put a tie on today. What up, Sad? What's up, Jason? It's like I was like, you know what? I'm a I'm gonna try to actually jazz it up today. I'm a look like my old self, right? Like I don't actually have to get dressed very often these days, but I gave the advice to somebody last week that at least once a month just put some clothes on and like act like you normally would act if you were going out on a regular basis. I also told them to do a photo shoot, but like I think that it's important. So today I put a tie on. Look at me, got a shirt and a tie. All right, so it is what it is. So crazy times in USA. We're coming up on February really quickly. It is the 28th of January. Where did January go through? I mean, just the other day we were having an insurrection. Where did the time go? Right? It's like I turn around and so we have a major program coming up at the college that I work at, and we're having Misty Copeland as one of our keynote speakers. And I turned around the other day. I was like, oh, I guess I should do the run of show for that event, and that's like on Monday. So it's the months are flying by. Before you know it, it'll be August, and time to celebrate my birthday again. Yes, I know. I'm a Leo. The world revolves around Leos. For those of you who don't know, the world revolves around Leos. This is like the orbit around Leos right here. Anyway, what are we going to talk about today? One of the first things that we have to talk about is the fact that the impeachment papers were passed down to Congress this week, and there's a lot of hubbub about the fact that it's probably not going to get voted on. Well, it's probably not going to pass. They're not going to convict. And I don't know that there was ever really an idea that this was that they were actually going to convict. I think that there was a hope that maybe we would able to get some of the Republicans to finally cleave their way away from Trump, and maybe 17 people were going to cross the line. I personally never felt like 17 Republicans were going to forego their party, even though Trump has been pretty much censored and he can't angry tweet at people. He still has his ways of getting out to people. And so I think that there are enough people who are afraid not only for their political career, but real talk, there are people who are afraid for their life, right? Because it is been well documented that when people have outwardly come out against Trumpism, and that's now a word. Can you believe it? Actively come out against Trumpism, that their lives are in danger, and so I can absolutely see how people would not want to vote that way, whether or not they were waiting on an election, or they're wondering whether or not they would get backed by the party again. I can see how people did not want to have their homes bombed and have them there are crazy people out there that will shoot, that are interested in shooting people because of their political view. Where do we live, right? And so but a lot of people are saying, well, what's the point of trying to move forward with the impeachment, and what's the point? I think that there's a very important piece of information, or not information, a very important statement that got made. If this insurrection goes unpunished, and the person who instigated the insurrection goes unpunished, it then no, it then doesn't just become an insurrection; it becomes practice. right? So, oh, this is what we can get away with. Let's try this thing. This is what we can get away with here. Let's try this other thing, right? So it is very important that they move forward with this. I think that that's a that's something that we need to talk about. So I just wanted to start with that and get it out of the way because this could be a whole show about this whole thing that's happening. But I'm going to move on to other things. One of the things that the Trump administration said that they did, and they absolutely did not do, was have a plan for vaccines. The vaccines are a hot mess. Getting vaccines are a hot mess. Like literally, it is the wild wild west out here. There is not enough. So on one hand, there are not enough vaccines and I'll speak for New York City. There are not enough vaccines for New York City for all of the people who want a vaccine, and so it's causing people to make appointments, show up for appointments, and then the sites are shut down. So they get to the place and it's closed. It's cold outside. Y'all may not know anything about New York City winters, but it ain't warm, right? So you have people who are standing outside waiting for these vaccines. So that's one problem that they're having. The other piece is that there are people who are doing really crazy things in order to get vaccines. There are people who are driving 3 hours, making appointments, who are 3 hours away and driving 3 hours to get a vaccine. There's this one couple in Vermont. Yes, one couple from Vermont went to tribal lands in I forgot what state it was, but went to tribal lands and posed as shopkeepers on tribal lands in order to get themselves a vaccine. And we hear doctors are saying that rich people are paying thousands and thousands of dollars in bribes in order to get their vaccine and to get their whole family vaccinated. There was a firefighter not a firefighter, an EMT, an award-winning EMT. Like this guy just literally got an award for valor the day before, was then convicted or was fired because he stole vaccines from the lot of the vaccines that were being given out. The dude got celebrated the day before, and now he's out of a job. It's becoming crazy out here. Was it New Jersey? I believe they hired a bunch of grad students to administer the vaccine, and one of the grad students took some of the vaccines home with him. Not supposed to do that. They may not have told him that. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they didn't tell him. See this rest of stuff over here? You're not supposed to take that home with you. Maybe they forgot to tell him that stuff. But so everybody is doing the absolute most. And the problem again is, and we talked about this in prior shows, the problem again is that there was an inordinate amount of money that was put into the creation of the vaccine. There was an inordinate amount of money that was put into the distribution of the vaccine to the states. There was zero money put into putting in structures that would ensure that when the vaccine reached the places that it was supposed to go, that the states had infrastructure set up in order to distribute it to the rest of the community, right? And so therein lies the problem, right? Because if I were doing it, and I'm not, but I'm a layperson, so I'm looking at this from a layperson, but I'm also an event planner. So if you have people coming in for the vaccine and you have a certain amount, and the other piece is, and I'm jumping all over the place, but the other piece about it is that people are now concerned that if they get the first dose, if they're going to be able to get the second dose. They're concerned about whether or not they can go from the Moderna vaccine to the Pfizer vaccine. So do one in the first dose and do the other one in the second dose, right? So these are all the concerns that are out there. And so my the way I would have done it, Hayden Green, my opinion, right? The way I would have done it is simple. You come in for your vaccine, right? You get your shot in your arm. There is a dosage for you put aside for when you come back in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, or however long it is, right? It's put to the side for you so that you can get, so you know that you are guaranteed to get your second vaccine. Before you walk out the door, you are given your second appointment. So now I've walked in, I've gotten my thing. I know that there's a second dose waiting for me, and that I will get the second dose on this particular date. I I don't I don't see why that's not being done. That's my real question. It's like I don't understand why that part of it is not being done. Where it's these people have to come back, and now people are concerned that they won't get a second shipment in so that they get their second dose. This is craziness. A couple of shows back, we talked about the fact that if there is a if there is leftover vaccine, we should just go ahead and vaccinate whoever was there, or we have a waiting list, or we have. So there are places where people are doing that. So they must have listened to the show because, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of listeners. We don't. Y'all need to get on your game and tell a friend to tell a friend. Right, said? Anyway, so they're doing this, right? So they have what's called oh God, I forgot what they're calling it, but it's a waiting line, right? So if you go, somebody said that if Amazon and Starbucks was running this, everybody would have been vaccinated by Saturday, Thursday if you had Prime. So they have these lines that are set out in case there's vaccine left over, and they can give and they can't put it back in the refrigerator, so they have to give it out. So these lines are there. There are people who are showing up to sit on these lines to get the excess vaccine, which is great and one part of it. But what has also started happening is these lines are in disenfranchised neighborhoods, so black and brown neighborhoods, and everybody on the line are white. So, like, it again is rich white people coming into these neighborhoods and saying, you have something we need. We're not going to tell, they're not telling the residents, the people who are around in that neighborhood who could get that. And they're swooping in. And now this is another problem of rich white people swooping into black and brown neighborhoods and taking resources that are meant for one community and being distributed to another community. The one thing that I am happy about is that the Biden administration seems adamant to really get this right. They're putting the right foot forward in order to make this happen. I can't speak to whether or not this is going to be whether they're going to get it right, but I know that they're trying their best. They've looked at it, they realized that it was a complete shamshad, and they are now trying to put this cluster back together and make sure that you heard Biden say that he wants 100 million doses by his first 100 days, and so I think that we're on the right track. The other thing is that at the very least, from this administration, if something is falling down, if something's not working, it won't be like, well, we're doing a great job, don't worry about it. You know that you'll hear whether or not whether or not they're having difficulties. So that's the one thing that I'm confident that they're gonna at least try. They're gonna try to get this right. And again, like we were talking about back in the early days of this virus, there is no right answer. There is no right way of doing any of this stuff, and so it's going to be a lot of trial and error. The only thing that we ever ask people is that when there is an error, that we not make it seem like it's a success, right? So, hey, Krista, always good to see Krista. Hi, Krista. Privilege all around with the vaccine distribution, crushing for seniors, minority groups, disabled, and so on and so on. Yeah, absolutely. And you're hearing these stories of people waiting until 1 o'clock in the morning to get a vaccine, and then them being told that they ran out for the day, right? So it's just bananas out there, and hopefully it gets fixed. The thing that I'm concerned about with the vaccine is that they are, people are acting like getting the vaccine is now going to make you into Superman, and that you will not be able to, that you won't suddenly won't get the virus. We have talked about this, and again, y'all need to tell your friends to listen to the show so they can get some information. The vaccine does not prevent you from getting the virus. There is still a chance. None of these vaccines are 100. Some are 97, some are 98, um, some are 99. The Johnson & Johnson one that's coming out is 77%, but it's only a one dose vaccine, so you don't have to go back. And so the point is that there is a chance that you can still get the virus. The point of the vaccine is that if you do get the virus, the symptoms and the outcome from getting the virus is less impactful than if you don't have any kind of protection, right? I think, was it Fauci or somebody else, talked about the fact that getting the vaccine is like getting a suit of armor that has holes in it, right? So an arrow can still get through, but it won't go all the way into your skin, right? It'll puncture a little bit, but you can recover from that, as opposed to getting an arrow without any kind of armor that'll go straight through your heart, right? And that's what's happening to people who are not vaccinated. The people who are not vaccinated are definitely at risk for death, right? But once you get vaccinated, if you happen to contract the disease, you're still able to recover quicker, and the symptoms are less. The other piece of it is that if you get vaccinated, it doesn't mean that you now have this like force field around you that the vaccine can't touch. So we just talked about the fact that you can still get it, right? Here's the other thing: you can still give it to somebody, right? If you have the vaccine, if you have the virus on you, or you've been infected, or you're not symptomatic and you haven't get tested because I've got the vaccine, so I don't need to get tested anymore, so you no longer know whether or not you have the virus, you can pass the virus on to somebody else, which means that you still have to do all of the things that you were doing prior to getting the vaccine. Still cover up with masks, still wash your hands. I really am sad that in 2021 we are still telling people to wash their hands. Anyway, so you still need to do all the rest of that stuff. The vaccine is not a force field, and I think that that's one of the main things that I want people to really embrace. If you are going to get the vaccine, do not now think that you are Black Adam and cannot be killed. Right? Do not. That's a comic book nerd deep reference. Anyway, the Rock is playing Black Adam, so everybody will know him in a few minutes. Anyway, so don't think that you can't, that you're invulnerable. I can never say that word. That you're no longer vulnerable. Do not think that you can't pass it on. The virus is not a cure, and I cannot emphasize that enough, because a lot of people. I foresee that there's going to be a nice dip, and then everybody is going to feel like they've been cured, and it's going to go back up again. Especially since we're now seeing South Africa versions, and we're seeing English versions, we're seeing Brazilian versions, we're seeing a version from the West Coast. There's a West Coast. The mutations are everywhere, right? And some of them are less lethal but more contagious. There's some of them are more contagious and I'm saying the same thing, or less contagious and more, but the mutations are out there. Everybody still needs to be safe. So I just think that we all need to be very, very careful about some stuff. I forgot the one funny thing about this whole Trumpism thing. I know I'm going backwards, right? Was that we saw an article. These people who are been incarcerated for storming the Capitol are now very angry that Trump did not pardon them. I try not to laugh every time I say that. But that to me is the most hilarious thing. And so again, one of my favorite movies is oh my god, what was the name? It's with it's where the devil comes down and he's fighting Gabriel and um and Christopher Walken plays Gabriel and he's fighting with the humans. I forgot. Oh, but the movie's so great. The reason that one of the movie is great is that there is a a line in there that says that the greatest trick of the devil is convincing the world that he did not exist. And so the way I take that is when people tell you, show you that they are who they are, but have been able to finagle it so that you, through smoke and mirror, don't believe that what you're seeing is not true. This man got up there and somehow convinced the working class of America, the hardworking, really nose to the grindstone working class of America, that he was one of them. A trust fund baby was one of them, right? And he convinced them to do things with the premise that go ahead and do it. I got you. Remember when they were when they had the rallies at the very beginning of his thing where he was like, you know, beat these people up. I got lawyers. I'll bail you out. Do this. I got so and so. I'll bail you out. He he has been telling these people and setting them up for 4 years. For the prophecy. Oh man, I could not remember the. Thanks, Kurt. Oh, what up, Kurt? Kurt's on the joint. Trini people, right? So he's been telling them for 4 years. He has pulled the greatest shamshad. He has pulled the greatest wool over people's eyes. He's been telling them for 4 years, go do this stuff. I got you. Don't worry about it. I'm rich. I'll buy the judges and all the rest of the stuff. And then now these people have gone out there and they will, I guarantee you, they were sure that if they got in trouble, that Trump would pardon them. Even as they're sitting in jail and they were like, Trump is probably going to pardon me. I'm going to get it because I did it in his name. Like he's Christ or something like that. I did it in his name. So he's going to pardon me. And now they are crying that they felt like they have been deceived because they believed that Trump was going to pardon them. Trump don't know who you are. Never did. Never cared about you. And now it's all coming out. Right? Now it's all coming out. And all these people that stand for this guy are going to realize that he only used people to get where he was. And he only used people to get what he wanted. And this is all going to come out in the wash. That, you know, that Congresswoman Greene, who's over here talking about shooting people and all the rest of the stuff and being a Trump stan, she's going to realize that she was being used. All of them are going to realize that they're going to be used. Lindsey Graham, who is so far up his butt, is going to realize how much he's being used. And you know, we go back to this whole thing about like I personally think that what you call him that Trump has a whole bunch of tapes on all of these people, right? But they're all gonna find the rich ones. They're all gonna find out that they've all been used, and they're all gonna come out stinking in the wash. All right, what's going on in the chat? The most infamous people in hell want ice water. Don't mean that they're gonna get it, because they're 1,000,000% he doesn't care about any of them. They're disposable to him. Yeah, the whole world is disposable to him. Every single person that he appointed who thought that they were the golden child to him were able to be fired. Everybody. I'm waiting for him to turn on Rudy. He turned on Pence. Pence was his lapdog. He turned on Pence, and I'm waiting for him to turn on Rudy. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. All Rudy has to do is say the wrong thing or finally realize that he is being used and he has looked like a complete mockery and come to his senses and say the wrong thing, and Trump will dump him as well. He doesn't have the Twitter platform or any social media platform anymore, but that's not going to stop him from getting a website and start talking there. Anyway, so I just think that there is a really interesting dynamic going on where people are now coming to the realization that they have been used, they've been duped, and that this man has no idea who they are. And even if he does realize who they are, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't even care about his own kids. And if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. Right? Politics is fickle beast, and politics will last 4 years, and and the politics of the last 4 years have been the most fickle. I agree with you, and I normally would say that this applies, except this has not been politics. This has been business. Everything that Trump has done over the last 4 years has been to set himself up to be richer than when he walked into the Oval Office. This has not been politics. This has been all business. This has all been megalomaniac and narcissism at the very best. This has not been politics. Politics is about serving the people. Politics is about doing things to the benefit of the country of which you have been elected to serve. This has never been about politics. This has all been about making himself richer, making his family richer. This has never been about politics. So it can't be fickle because it didn't pass the sniff test to begin with. Anyway, speaking about making people richer, I have been watching a new show on Netflix called Bling Empire. Those of you who have been watching with me, or not with me, but those of you who have been watching as well as I have been watching, know that this show will make you feel poor, no matter how rich you are. So here's the premise. Take Crazy Rich Asians, the movie, and make a whole series about them. Done. That's it. So the show follows a group of young and one older rich Asian people in Los Angeles. And so calling them rich is a little bit of a misnomer. Calling them filthy rich might get it a little bit closer. Calling them wealthy beyond your wildest dreams is a little bit closer. They have so much money that the things that we think are actual life achievements are pocket change to them. So every now and again, you know, when the Real Housewives of New York and stuff like that was real, when they first came on, I would tune in because I wanted to see how the other half lived, right? And I would see them doing exorbitant things or elaborate things, and I was like, oh, that's how the other half lives. And then I watched Bling Empire. Those people have nothing on these kids. They are literally buying and selling entire GDPs of small countries on a day-to-day basis. And you never really see, well, there are a couple of them who actually make some of the money for themselves, but you never really see where the money is coming from, because some of it is trust fund stuff. But this is amazing. There is one scene in Bling Empire, and I have to get it right, that somebody is, oh God, what is it? I think they were trying to get pregnant or something to that effect. Anyway, they go into the store to get something that's called fish maw. For those of you who do not know what fish maw is, because I didn't know what fish maw was. Fish maw is the air bladder in a fish, right? It's the thing that converts the oxygen out of the water into usable oxygen for the fish so that it can breathe underwater. Who knew this was a thing? You want to guess how much a fish maw costs? Do you want to guess how much money you have to spend in order to get one of these bladders? $10,000. This thing is in a fish. And it's not even like it's in a fish of like some expensive fish. It's like the most expensive fish you can find. This is regular fish more, right? $10,000. And so, okay, fine. There's a thing for $10,000 to be purchased. That's one thing, right? There are a lot of things when you walk into places you're like, I can't believe that that's there and that's to be, that's the price of it. The amazing thing is that they were like, do we need it? I don't know. I just get it. What? What? Oh my God. Just get it. And so there's this whole thing of like one of the cast members is a model, right? So he's got money, but it comes from his modeling career. So he's got disposable income, and it's not like anywhere close to the wealth that his friends have, right? His friends are buying cars for no reason, or buying jewelry that is the cost of my home, right? And so he's looking at this with incredulous eyes every single time, and it is mind numbing that there is so much money out there. Why do I even bring this up? Number one, because it's crazy. Number two, there's this whole conversation about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, and these kids are, and they're 20, 21. They're young. So I'm 51. I can still call them kids. I got 30 years on these guys. So they're spending money that they didn't earn, for the most part. There's one scene where one of the women, who again is another trust fund baby, and it says, "Oh well, I make money," and one of the people say, it was like, well, how much do you make from? And because she's an influencer, and she's like, oh, I don't know. Last year was about 48,000, and they laughed at her. Somebody said that that's the price of one of my shoes, or something to that effect, right? And so when we start talking about money in this country, it is still about inheritances. It is still about generational wealth. It is still about how much money you walked into the room with, right? So there's this, in America, there is this thing called, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Everybody's familiar with the terminology. And there is a mindset that if you work really, really, really hard, you can be wealthy. You can be successful. Number one, it's true, but it's not true for everyone, right? Because if everybody is starting at the same place, then yes, we can work our way up, right? But if you are working from minus 100 and you work really, really, really hard, you might get to minus 50. Doesn't say that you didn't work hard, but you had such a deficit from the beginning that it will never show that you worked really, really hard, which is different than if you started at zero. If you started at zero, which is what people assume everybody starts at, it's like, oh, if you have nothing and you work really hard, you'll get someplace. Okay, maybe that's true, right? But what they always use as examples are people who started at 100 or 1,000 and work relatively hard, and then they get all of these wealth and they're able to compound the wealth that they already started with. And this country is not built on grit. This country is not built on people who started from nothing. First of all, people who are in the richest people in this country often will tell you that I had nothing. Meanwhile, they had both parents that went to college. Meanwhile, they inherited money from ancestors that were involved in slave trades. Meanwhile, they were landowners during the original settlement of this country, right? So, like, they discount everything that came before they're walking onto the scene because they have no concept of what it really means to have nothing. More importantly, because they have no concept of what it really means to have less than nothing, they believe in their heart of hearts, which is why you can't fault them to a point, because they believe in their heart of hearts that they actually started from nothing. And that's never true in this country. There is always something that they were able to stand. There are very few people that come from zero or less than zero and are able to make it all the way to the places that people can say, oh, well, look at you, you've been successful. Two, successful, there's successful, and then there is stupid rich, which the people on Bling Empire are stupid rich, right? So every time you sit around and you think, all right, I finally made it. I got myself a nice house. I've got a good job. I'm making this amount of money. I'm making $1 million, yada, yada, yada. And you look over your shoulder, there's somebody who has 10 times as much money as you do, right? And so when you start to look at what we consider to be making it and being successful, and you delude yourself into thinking it's like, all right, this is the American dream. And then you watch a show like Bling Empire and you realize that there is a whole other subset of this society that has wealth and money beyond your wildest dreams. And when I tell you beyond your wildest dreams, you don't even realize how these people live. It's like the Sixth Sense. They walk among us and we don't even know who they are, right? What their mindset is, what their daily activity looks like, how they throw parties, how they eat, what they do, right? And it's like it is completely different than the way you consider what you consider to be success, right? There is when I was growing up, there's an old saying that says, you don't work for money, you make money work for you, right? There's even another level where money is working for the money that you put in is working for, right? So like, there's so much, you are so far removed from the actual process of creating something that will generate money that it is ridiculous. Like you're not even close to it, right? Your parents are like 10 steps away from actually creating something that creates money, right? You're benefiting from that. One of the characters on Bling Empire is just trying to figure out what he's going to do. He has a wall. The first time I saw it, I thought it was a store. He has a wall of shoes. A wall. Like a whole wall. Like from top to bottom, all from stretching all the way across. A wall of shoes. The cheapest one on that wall is about $10,000. Right? So like, that's stupid rich, right? Right. Krista says some of us are 50 steps back. No, but my point is like, no, we have a direct correlation to the income that we have to the efforts that we put in. So what I'm talking about is that when you live your life and nothing that you do is directly reflective of the amount of income that you have. Nothing. You don't. There is no idea that you came up as like, oh, that generated more money for me, right? Or there is no activity that you did that said this added to my bank account. Your bank account comes and goes, without your efforts. You have no concept of where the money comes from, or what you would need to do if that money flow stopped. Most of us are very cognizant of what we need to do in order to keep our money flow going, right? Most of us are even if we're a couple steps behind, like, so there's some of us who are like, we made money and the amount of the money is over there making us money. We know if we put in this effort and added to that money that was making us more money, we'd make more money. We're directly connected to it, even though we're not actually doing something that's causing us to have more money. These cats have no idea. No idea. No idea. They probably know what their parents do or what their parents' parents did, but they have no idea now. And there are tons. So this is focuses on Asian people, but there are tons of people who have generational wealth in this country that is way beyond our concepts. And there are people who are living on this generational wealth who are like, what am I gonna do now? I guess I will maybe start a makeup company. Yay! Yes, I'm talking about the Kardashians. And they're a whole nother thing because they want to also talk about their geniuses and stuff like that. The Kardashians had money before any of them decided that they were going to be music porn. I mean, I'm joking. Before any of them decided that they were going to be TV stars, right? They make it seem like who was the one that was like the first self-made millionaire, the youngest one, Kylie Jenner or something like that. Get out of here. Like how much money did you start with to talk about that you're the first millionaire under a certain age? Get out of here. So anyway, there is a constant conversation about the fact that, well, people shouldn't want handouts. People shouldn't want being given stuff. But this country was based on handouts. Go to the Midwest, right? There's a corn farmer right now growing a crop of corn. Well, not right now because it's winter, but like getting ready to grow a crop of corn that will never see the light of day, that he will store somewhere, and that the government will pay him so that he can continue to be a corn farmer. Don't believe me? Information's right there, right? And that's a handout. But people only want to talk about handouts when it is in the form of welfare. People only want to talk about handouts when it's in the form of social justice initiatives, right? And so, this whole mindset of, people need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. I'm not even going to use the whole metaphor of it's hard to pull yourself up by your bootstraps if you don't have any boots. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that if people actually work hard, there are only certain levels that you are able to get to. You are never, unless you fall into the most crazy idea of the century that makes you ducats, right? You are never going to get to the level of the people on Bling Empire because it comes from generational wealth. And this is my point. And this is why I watch this stuff and it hurts my heart, right? Because if the disenfranchised people in this country were given what they were supposed to have been given at the outset, this could have happened for people of my generation, right? Like when people who were formerly enslaved people started trying to make for ourselves and had systems in place where we could create economic and generational wealth, people of that time burned it to the ground. Black Wall Street, right? And Tulsa, Oklahoma race massacre. Never call it a riot. A riot is two people fighting. What happened in Tulsa was a massacre, right? And so, like, it's an amazing conversation, and this conversation is beginning to come up again because now that Biden's in place, you're starting to see a bunch of initiatives that are geared to create equality, and a lot of people are already starting to guffaw about the fact, it's like, well, why do these people need it, or why does this happen? Because this country has taken away and taken and taken and taken and given to other people, and now it's time to reverse some of those things, right? And so we are at this stage where we are going to be at the beginning of having this conversation again, and just watching shows like Bling Empire are going to make me mad when people start to talk about, well, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to spend so much money on these programs? And when you start to realize that this country and this world has an embarrassment of riches, and the rich never want to share the pie, as if to say you can use all. It's like being a person who is one person who is hungry and being in literally a room full of pies, which you cannot eat yourself. But because somebody else wants a piece of that pie, you start to create all kinds of systems in which to protect your prize, the pies that you are not going to eat, that you're just going to sit to the side for your family to maybe eat. Here's the kicker. Even if you invite everybody, every member of your family to eat pies out of that room, you're still not going to eat all of those pies. But you would rather not see those pies leave your possession in order to benefit the world. And this is the kind of country that we live in, right? Because everybody is like, well, I got here because I worked hard to get these pies. When in fact, nobody wants to admit that you only got here because you started off with 5 pies. Or you started off with a pile of pies and you multiplied that pile of pies. And so I anticipate we're going to have more of these discussions later on when we start to talk about building generational wealth for the disenfranchised members of our communities. But, hopefully it's a conversation that we are ready to have and that we can move forward with it, and that we're not sitting back and talking about, oh, well, we don't need to give out money because they should have worked hard to get their stuff as well. So miss me with that. Anyway, it is cold as hell in New York City, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody stays safe out there. If you're going to go get yourself a vaccine, make sure you dress warmly in case there's long lines. I love you all. This has been the Greenhouse Effect. I think we're gonna end here today. This has been the Greenhouse Effect. Make sure you go out there and